That's what I was going to say is ideally it's like, who's the person that's going to be the money? And if they, like me, I say that to people, bring me a deal, but I don't want to take the deal, all the equity. I want to give them some equity so we go do more. And so I've done all kinds of things where I'll throw up all the money and then I get paid back and then we split the profits a certain way. But you're right. I mean, that whole thing is find the deal, find the money. It's true. It's showtime. Dave Dubeau. How's it going, man?
It's awesome. How you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing good, man. We're staying busy and appreciate you joining the Real Estate Podcast.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and it's kind of a little bit of osmosis. You're in my favorite town in Texas, probably cooking your buns off. I'm freezing my derriere off up here in Canada, but it's all good, man.
I love it, man. Well, I'm sitting in the back of our construction office because our crew's taking up the office right now, but appreciate your time, man. And
keeping it real.
Yeah, just keeping it real, keeping it natural. We're just rolling. And yeah, man, so what we like to do, we're just trying to provide value for entrepreneurs. And I've done a little bit of research on your YouTube channel and your company. I saw you got a psychology degree. And if you're okay with it, we'd love to kind of dive into your story on as much as you want to talk about, but kind of what growing up was like, what you've done in your career and how you got to the point you're at today. And along the way, we'll just, fire off questions and talk real estate and making money and whatever's valuable to our listeners.
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds great, Matt. So, as your listeners can probably hear, I'm Canadian, got the accent going here. Born and raised up in a hick town in the middle of nowhere, and kind of grew up around real estate because I didn't realize it at the time, but the family home was actually a sixplex. So my father and my grandfather built a sixplex, and we lived in one of the units. They lived in one of the other units, and we had 4 tenants going on there. That seemed normal to me.
My parents really just not to cut you off, but that's just like super cool to have that experience growing up and understand owning real estate and having people help cover the mortgage and the payments or make that additional
I didn't really understand that, but I wasn't that naturally gifted in the brain department. It was just kind of normal. It just seemed like, okay, you had all these different people kind of coming and going, and it just was what it was. Where I started paying a little bit of attention to it more was, unfortunately, my parents split up, but my mom was a very active real estate entrepreneur. Now, you got to remember, I'm an old fart, so this is back in the 70s, early 80s. There she was, a single mom, working full-time, raising a snot-nosed kid, me. And at that time, she was able to build up a portfolio of over 50 doors way back in the day.
Wow.
Hell, she even built had a small apartment building built and all sorts of different things. So I was kind of used to seeing that. She and my older brother got involved in building a duplex, and I saw how excited they were about this. So I said, hey, I think I was about 12 at the time, 12, maybe 13. Can I get involved with this? And they said, have you got any money? And somehow I had scraped up $200. So I got to invest my $200. They said, okay, you get to be in charge of the garbage stoop. That's your piece of the property there, kid. So that was, I guess, my very first investment. Fast forward a number of years,
just to slow down real quick on this, because my mom did similar things. She never developed something, but she was a single mom, and she pretty much sacrificed a lot. Was she a single mom buying this property? And I mean, to back up a little bit even more, like with that eightplex, was that something your family talked about was that part of a conversation of like, this is an asset, this is something, and this is why we're doing it?
Not a lot. It kind of was, but it wasn't expressed that way. And unfortunately, this is way before your time, my friend, but in the early 80s, the interest rates went insane. And unfortunately, my mother went bankrupt, went belly up, and had to lose everything. She got foreclosed on. But because the interest rates spiked up to 18, 21% kind of thing,
Wow.
which we can't even fathom these days. But yeah, it put a crimp in her style.
So was she, because I started in 2012, right? And I've heard about this, but like those rates like that, I mean, was she on, variable interest rates, and was she doing some development? Like what would cause that to happen, I guess?
Yeah, I guess she was on some variable interest rates. Again, this is before I was actively paying a hell of a lot of attention. I just remember the crap storm that went on. That's for sure.
Hmm.
Trauma that caused her. Luckily, she had a good job. So, but yeah, it was one of those situations where basically a bank called the loan, and she wasn't quite able to make it happen, and then house of cards came falling down, kind of thing. So
Got it.
yeah, it was a big. Now, give her credit. She's passed on a few years ago, but give her credit. She built back up and started reinvesting in real estate as well. Didn't grow as big, but she always had investment properties. Always had them. So
The entrepreneur always gets back up, right?
yeah, man, not much choice, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So myself personally, I went to university, graduated with that. It's called a BA. I know you've got a master's degree there, Matt, but a BA for me stands for basically asinine, right? It's a pretty much useless degree in psychology. Graduated way back in 1990. Nobody was, I had a lot of fun in university, didn't learn a hell of a lot, didn't get good grades. And when I graduated, nobody was throwing jobs at me for some miraculous reason. So I decided to go travel, see a bit of the world, and ended up going down to Mexico. Hung out there for about a year and a half, traveled around Mexico and Central America altogether for about 2.5 years, and settled down in a little place called San Jose, Costa Rica, and decided, well, what the heck, here I am. I was about 23 at the time. This looks like a cool country. Why don't I just plant my flag here and settle down and start a business? What the heck?
What was
So
your
that's what I did.
when you were going to Mexico? What was your mindset? Were you just kind of like, hey, I'm young, I want to get out and experience the world? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, exactly. So that was the thought process. I had nothing better to do, pretty much, is what was going on there, Matt. So I thought, what the hell, go see a bit of the world. So that's what I did, and settled down in Costa Rica. I had had about $1,000 to my name by that time. So anyhow, I started this little company. Ended up meeting a lovely lady down there. Got married, had kids, had a language training company. Somehow made it work, and actually was quite successful. And lived there for 10 years, and had a couple of kids. And then in 2003, we decided to pack everything up and move to Canada. So you got to remember, my wife was Costa Rican, my kids were Costa Rican, and everybody's going, Dave, you're living in tropical paradise, kind of living the dream, live-in maids and gardeners and gated communities and all this kind of stuff. And you're going to leave all that behind and start all over again from scratch back in Canada. Why would you do that? Well, Matt, you don't realize how good we've got it in North America until you leave for a while. So again, Costa Rica is a great, lovely country, but being the pasty-faced white guy I am, whether you have money or not, everyone assumes that you do, and there's kind of a big target on your back and that of your family, right? So things like getting kidnapped and held for ransom and that sort of thing don't happen a lot, but they do happen. So I know two people that happened to. So I thought, you know what? Kids are getting to be school age at that time. Let's raise them in Canada. So that's what we did. But then it was a new challenge. It's like, what the hell am I going to do? I hadn't been able to sell my business in Costa Rica, so I didn't have a lot of cash. I'd be gone so long. I had zero credit. I didn't have bad credit. I had no credit. I've been self-employed so long, I was pretty much unemployable. And we had to move from that lifestyle to a crappy little townhouse on the wrong side of the tracks. It was like, okay. And my Costa Rican wife, now my ex-wife, she's kind of persnickety, right? So there's a little bit of pressure to get my you-know-what together. And I remember, I don't know if you remember these things. Do you remember those late night infomercials that used to come across the TV that says, you too can get rich in real estate with little or no money down?
Yeah.
I actually took a formal education about real estate. I took a a guy from Florida, his home study course, and that was my first foray into real estate education.
What was your business in Costa Rica?
At a language training company, so we would send teachers out to corporate clients like Pfizer and Intel and Kimberly Clark and big transnational companies, and we would train their employees how to speak English.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what were, up to this point of your life, what were some of the biggest challenges and biggest lessons that you had learned to set you up for the next part of your life?
Well, I guess being bold, pretty good lesson.
Being bold. Love it. Fortune favors the bold.
Yeah, man, because there was, after having that kind of experience of starting from scratch in a foreign country, in a foreign language as an illegal alien at the time, nothing seemed all that scary. Coming back home, it seemed like this shouldn't be that tough. And, I really took that training that I received and I put it into play. And that was one of the big things that I noticed, because the original training I took was from a guy named Ron LeGrand, who I'm sure you've heard of. He's pretty big in the real estate circles, or at least he used to be. And I can remember I went to a seminar that he put on in Canada. He came up here, and there were literally, hundreds and hundreds of people at this seminar. And we all got together, and people from different areas kind of got together, and we decided, hey, let's meet together and brainstorm and self-support each other and help each other succeed. So I started doing that, and I live in a small town about 3.5 hours away from Vancouver. So we decided to get together in Vancouver on a weekly basis so I had to hop in my car and drive 3.5 hours to Vancouver, have this little get together with these other real estate weirdos, and then get in my car and drive back home, right? So I can remember by this time I'd already been active. My initial claim to fame was I did 18 deals in 18 months. So I was kind of at the beginning of that journey, and I'd already done several deals, and this was my gig. I was very serious about this. And I can remember going to that first meeting, and a bunch of people were saying, well, okay, let's have a goal for next week when we get together. Everybody have their business cards done. I go, holy shit. I mean, you can do a hell of a lot more in a week than get your business cards done, for Christ's sake. But okay, not everybody's at the same stage I am. So I went back. So we started off with 40 people in this group. Go back the next week. You kind of know how this is going to go. Instead of 40 people, now there's, 25 people. Out of those 25 people, nobody got their damn business cards done. Nobody done a damn thing. Everybody's just kind of sitting on their thumbs doing nothing. So I'm getting frustrated. So bottom line is, I went to 3 or 4 of those things. The whole group whittled down to pretty much nothing, and nobody was doing anything. So it just reinforces, my friend, that fortune definitely does favor the bold, and most people are just, I don't know, they're stuck in analysis paralysis or something.
I get that completely, man. It's when you're trying to go the business route and entrepreneur route, you just realize that you have to think a little differently. And once you start doing that you realize there are no ceilings.
Yeah, for sure.
That's part of why we try to do what we do. I'm a big believer that real estate can be for everybody, and it can create that generational wealth, and it can set up a lifestyle that, whatever you want to do is possible. And it doesn't mean that you have to make $1 million. You can make 70,000 and not have to wake up at 8 and clock out at 7 or whatever it may be. So I agree with you completely. When you were saying about the 18 deals in 18 months, what were you doing? Were you flipping properties, or can you kind of give some insight there?
Yeah, well, I was doing all those wonky, low money, no money down type strategies. So I was doing options on people's houses. I was getting properties for $1, taking over the underlying mortgages. I was doing sandwich leases. I was doing all these creative type things because I didn't understand the concept. Well, first of all, I didn't have the cash to buy stuff.
That's a construction guy. Sorry.
No problem. I didn't have the cash to buy the properties outright. I didn't have the cash or the credit to qualify for financing, and I hadn't clued into using other people's money yet. So So my whole focus was on finding motivated sellers who were in kind of wonky situations and helping them get out of their properties. So,
And how
uh,
are you finding these opportunities?
oh, well, I was following the instructions that I got in the training there at the time. So this, this is before things were too crazy with, Google ads and Facebook ads and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of old school stuff, Matt, like direct mail, flyers, postcards, vehicle signage worked nicely, bandit signs, tear tab signs, you name it. I was doing it. I did have a website, got that kind of up and going. I developed a thing where we were kind of going through at that time Craigslist or our equivalent of Craigslist and coming up with all the house sellers and getting the addresses and doing direct mail to them and then getting them to call and book an appointment and this kind of stuff. So I'm with my previous business at Coast Freak, I became very passionate and good at marketing, and I applied that to attracting motivated sellers. And I'm in a fairly small area. I mean, the city I was living in at the time had a population of about 80,000 people, so it wasn't a huge place. So I really just focused on the town and the surrounding area.
Mm-hmm. So just a lot of lines in the water, right?
Yeah,
Trying to
man.
trying to find. That's what another thing that I always talk about is having hundreds or thousands of lines in the water, and the bait is the value. The value that you can bring for someone is what you're trying to attract people to.
We're trying to, at that point, I was trying to find people that were in desperate situations who needed a solution, and there was no other solution for them. And there really wasn't, right? I mean, if you've got somebody who's a little bit upside down on their property, that they owe more than the damn thing's worth, they can't sell it without going out of pocket. And if they need to move, they don't have cash. You got people, unfortunately, estate sale type situations. You got all sorts of different reasons. So I became quite good at that. So I did that for a couple of years, and then caught the eye of an up and coming real estate guru up here, kind of the Canadian version of Robert Kiyosaki, kind of the Canadian rich dad kind of guy. In fact, he was very closely associated with Robert Kiyosaki for years, and caught his eye and ended up going on board with him and his company as the director of marketing. Um, Helped him grow his little company from him and one or two employees working out of his basement to 7 branch offices, 128 employees, and about $200 million a year in revenues over the 6 years that I was working with those guys. I didn't do all that, but I was helping with the marketing through all of that. Took a little bit of time off from actively investing in real estate and was really focusing on that.
What was your way to get plugged in there and say, hey, here's some value that I can bring? How did you go about doing that and showing that value?
That's a good question. Nobody's really asked it that way before, Matt. It was all about bringing the value. So the way I first met this guy is it's a long story, but the way I first met him, he was doing these little seminars and playing the cash flow game, and I was a big fan of Kiyosaki and Rich Dad and all that stuff. So I was in there like a dirty shirt, and he was starting up a company called Doorknob Ads. So it was like, those old hotel do not disturb signs. Well, it was ads like that, like little coupon ads that you would put on the front door of every house in town.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at that and said, hey, that's brilliant. I would love to have my I Buy Houses ad on that. And I'd love to have everybody else pay for it so I could advertise for free. So basically, I went on board very early on as one of his first, wasn't really let's say a franchisee for lack of a better term. So I paid him some money up front because I became one of these things. And then I was watching, as I was doing this business and all that, I was watching what he was doing with his marketing for promoting his seminar business. I kept kind of giving him unsolicited suggestions like, dude, you think about doing this or think about doing this or think about, and the real key was I said, you know what, you're doing what everybody else is doing. You're doing what all the big gurus are trying to do. And that is you're hitting them, because I'm up here in Canada, right? You're hitting all the big cities, right? So you're hitting the Torontos, the Vancouvers, the Calgarys, the Edmontons. Why don't you try going to some of the smaller towns that nobody else goes to? And he basically kind of kept pushing me off. And finally, I think I wore him down. I wasn't trying to sell him anything. He said, okay, hey, let's shut you up. Put your money where your mouth is, or I'll put my money where your mouth is. Let's try something in your city. And so at that point, typically he was spending about $30,000 to fill up an event in a place like Vancouver or Toronto. I said, okay, well, what's the budget? He said, well, I'm willing to invest 10 grand. Okay, so previously with $30,000, he was getting on average about 300 people to come to one of his events. Okay, give or take. So long story short, with $10,000, I ended up getting close to 600 people to come out to an event in a town of 80,000 people. So we got twice the response from 1/10 the population and 1/3 of the marketing budget. He said, okay, guess what? You're in. You're my marketing guy. And so that was a fun 6-year run.
That's cool. So that's something we always talk about as well. And I'm personally big on is how do we be different, right? And as a brokerage, we're allowing our agents to kind of go do everything they want to, and we're going to help them do that. And, signing contracts, lending money, partnering, where some brokerages say, and this is all you do. And not that I judge one way or another, but back to fortune favors the bold, right? That was a bold move in some ways for you to say, let's go try this and spend 10 grand on it. And it worked out. So that's a good insight to take away is anytime you can seek to be different and try something out, if it's going to work, usually the results are going to be really good and big.
Yeah. Well, and again, I was pretty confident they would work. And it did. It definitely did.
Right on.
Yeah, so that was kind of that thing. So I took a little time off of actively investing in real estate, about 2010-ish, jumped back in, started focusing on a certain style of rent to own investing called tenant first rent to own. So by that time, I'd been back in the country a long time. My credit was good. I put aside a few shekels and I like a lot of people, I self-financed my first couple of properties. And then Matt, I like a lot of folks, and these are the people I work with, mom and pop real estate investors. I ran out of cash and credit to do more deals, and I heard just find a good deal and the money will find you. Have you ever heard that expression? Yeah. Well, guess what? I found this really good deal, and I had it all ready to go, and I calculated everything out, and it was going to be a really sweet little deal, but I didn't have the investors lined up, right? So I thought, okay, well, the money's not going to magically fall out of the sky for me. I'm going to have to go do something. So I'd heard, I'd watched a few movies and I'd heard a lot of stuff. Pick up the phone and start dialing for dollars. I really didn't like that idea, but I thought, okay, I'll try that. Dial, rejection. I'm a sensitive kind of guy. I don't know if you can tell that from talking to me, Matt. I couldn't handle that much rejection. So I said, okay, screw that. I don't want to do that anymore. And then I also heard, go and turn every conversation into a real estate conversation. Go out, schmooze, network, talk up a storm. Okay, so I went to the local BNI, Chamber of Commerce, Toastmasters, whoever the hell would let me in the door. I went in there and polished up my little 30-second commercial, my elevator pitch, and my business cards. And guess how much money I raised that way? Zero. Exactly, big fat zero. So by this time, I'm really running out of time, right? So I had to get a week-long extension on closing on the property. And I came up with a brilliant idea. I said, hey, this deal's so good, it will sell itself if enough people see it. So again, remember, I'm coming from a marketing background. You'd think I'd know a thing or two. So I put together a little PDF outline of this deal and how great it was. And I zapped that out to several hundred people on my list. That was the first thing that showed any traction. But then I started getting all these replies back saying, hey, Dave, I haven't heard from you in 5 years or 10 years. Or one guy hadn't heard from me in 18 years. Here you are hitting me up for cash. Take a hike. So long story short, Matt, lost that deal, went down in flames, was not able to raise the capital for that deal. And that's when I really kind of woke up and said, this sucks. This whole chasing after the money, find a good deal and the money will find you. That's not my experience, that's for sure. What I want to do is I want to get my investors lined up, ready to go, and then go make offers on property. So that's where I kind of came up with my my twist on things, what I call my money partner formula. And then, over the years, it's transformed a bit. I've gone from doing that kind of real estate investing. Now I'm much more of a passive investor focusing on multifamily properties. But my main shtick these days is helping other mom and pop real estate investors get started with the whole capital raising process.
Okay. Yeah, let's dive into that. It's funny because I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, you can see all sides of it. Find the deal, find the money. Well, the money's going to want the deal. So, people want to tell you that because they want you to bring you a deal that they can buy, but they're going to want all the equity, or most of the equity. So that's partly true. And there's a lot of different ways to view it. And just ideally, you're getting around.
It depends on who you're talking to.
That's what I was going to say is ideally it's like, who's the person that's going to be the money? And if they, like me, I say that to people, bring me a deal, but I don't want to take the deal, all the equity. I want to give them some equity so we go do more. And so I've done all kinds of things where I'll throw up all the money and then I get paid back and then we split the profits a certain way. But you're right. I mean, that whole thing is find the deal, find the money. It's true, but it's not in some ways because you could exactly like what you said. And
here's my little twist on it.
Yeah.
If we get a bunch of prospective money partners lined up, ready to go, people have put up their hand and said, hey, you know what, Matt, when you got a deal, I want first dibs. I want to hear about it first, right? When you get a number of those people lined up, then go find the deals because you've got capital there to back you up. So it's kind of like if find the deal and money will come. Yeah, if you've already got your investor partners lined up, primed, ready to go. It's kind of like getting your ducks in a row ahead of time, right? It just makes sense. Having your
it's all consistency, right? Like you got to know these people. And like I'm talking to a developer today in Austin on a couple of tracks that I found. But this has been a 6-year deal of him knowing me. And finally, literally today, we're talking about a property. He's giving me 30 minutes, where he wouldn't have done that if I didn't spend the previous time getting to know him.
6 years.
Right. Takes years, man. So that's the biggest thing that I feel as if people really miss out on is the consistent approach. If I had to pick one thing, that would be it. Just like your deal, in my opinion, of like when you were going to all these clubs and Toastmasters, et cetera, that would have worked if you would have kept doing it for years. But obviously there's a trade-off of where's your time more valuable. And I'm sure you've kind of seen that and agree with me, but like we have agents and they're like, how do I do this or that? And I'll tell them, just go do something and be super consistent with it. Because nobody, says yes on the first call or signs the first offer, but you got to have those lines in the water.
And I even go further back than that, Matt, because again, a lot of the people that I'm working with, what I call real estate entrepreneurs, they do not have the depth of experience and know-how that someone like yourself does. And sometimes we forget that, right? Like I've been around real estate for a long time. You're the only guy I know that's got a master's degree, for Christ's sake. So sometimes we have to kind of remove ourselves from that and realize that most what I call mom and pop real estate entrepreneurs, they've got 1 or 2, maybe 3 deals under their belt. They've self-financed everything. They've got their little portfolio. Most of them are working at their job still. They want to get to the point where they can start doing real estate full time, but they're not there. And they don't really know how to get started. So, they're not in the spot to reach out to accredited investors. They're not going to be able to compete at that level. So the shortcut that I've come up for people is this, especially, that's why our target market is people that are just getting started with raising capital. Really ties in with the consistency you're talking about. But why don't we start focusing on a group of people that we already know, right? Why won't we focus on our friends, our family members, people who know us and who we know? That I firmly believe most of your viewers, if they're just getting started with raising capital, there's between $500,000 and $1 million of capital in their current contacts that they just haven't accessed yet. So that is in my mind, that's the most logical place to start because, and let me know if you disagree, but
No,
for somebody
yeah,
to
totally.
invest
Well,
with you, they need to know you, like you, and trust you. You spent
yep.
6 years working on that with this guy. So we got a shortcut here. These people already know us. Hopefully they like us. Now we just got to get them to trust us with their money for a real estate deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think the trust also, in my opinion, comes with time, right? Because you're at the barbecue and you tell your uncle, "Hey, I'm raising capital." He's like, "When did you start doing this?" Yesterday. It's like, "No, I ain't putting money with you."
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
that 10th barbecue, after you've told him about the deals and what's going on and he's seen the work, then maybe he's coming to you asking to invest.
Exactly. That's an awesome point. And there's a way to kind of do both, Matt. There is a way to do both. So this 5-step little process here we've got is step number one is all about let's create that target group of prospective investors. And when we're working with clients, we work with them to come up with a group of about 150 to 200 people, right? Friends, family members, people from work, people from church, people from their sports groups or civic association, whatever the hell they're involved with. You know, you know these people, they know you. They're at least likely to listen to you. Now, do all of them have money? Hell no. We know that ahead of time. But we don't know who has it and who doesn't have it. We can never assume,
And
right?
who they know.
And who they know, exactly, right? So we want to focus on them for those big reasons. The other big reason is to stay out of crap with the Securities and Exchange Commission, right? Because if we're running out like chickens with their head cut off, just talking to everybody and anybody about investing with us, we could very well be crossing the line, legally speaking, as to what we're allowed to do and not allowed to do. And again, I'm not a lawyer, an accountant, or anything like that, but need to get proper legal advice about that. But if we're working within a group of people that we already have that pre-existing relationship with, it's a much safer place to get started. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we come up with that list of a couple of hundred people, and then instead of inviting everybody over for barbecues, which is not practical, well, especially nowadays. I don't know what you guys are like, but we're still in a little bit of a lockdown here. Um,
It's wide
so
open in Texas in some
is
ways.
it wide open? Is it wide open? You guys are all inoculated, and you don't give a crap anyhow.
It's a Wild West out here.
That's right. So anyhow, what we want to do is we want to reconnect with these people first before we start talking money, right? Because it's kind of tacky, and I know this from that experience, right, where I spammed everybody with my deal, and they told me to buzz off. Let's reconnect with them personally first, kind of like a virtual version of the barbecue, right? And then we can transition into starting to talk about business, right? Starting to talk about real estate. And then it's all about having a good presentation to show people. So if they do put up their hand and say, "Hey, Matt, I'm interested. Tell me what you got." We got to remember that most of these people are not real estate nerds like us, right? Most of these people, and this is hard for us to remember sometimes because we're so immersed in this stuff. We got to remember that these folks are regular, everyday human beings, punching the clock, doing a job, whatever. They're not super juiced up about real estate like we are. So we got to dumb it down quite a bit. We got to keep it, we got to simplify. We got to make it at the Reader's Digest level for these folks because they're not sophisticated, accredited type investors. They're everyday folks. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. So I always suggest people have a well put together slideshow type presentation that you can show them on your tablet or your laptop or doing it by Zoom, whatever you want to do like that. That tends to work much better for most people than trying to draw stuff out on a yellow legal pad with a Sharpie, MLM style. So a good presentation. And then the next part is all about that consistency, like you were talking about, right? That constant, consistent communication. In other words, marketing. So you need to get top of mind and you need to stay top of mind with your prospective investors. Because here's what I found, Matt. Let's say we got a group of 200 people. Out of those 200 people, there very well could be 10 people who could invest with us. Would that be fair? There could be 10 people out of those 200. We don't know who they are yet, right? We're not sure which ones are and which ones aren't. But out of the group of 10 people, I would say that one or two of them, if we do things right, could be ready to invest fairly quickly, like within the next 30 to 90 days. We could get a couple of investors out of there actually investing with us sooner rather than later. However, the vast majority, as you mentioned, the 80% of them, it's going to take more time. They're going to need to see more proof in the pudding. They're going to need to get much more comfortable to really create that trust factor with you about their money, right? So that's the importance of this constant, consistent communication. So what we always tell our clients and what we do with our clients is we have weekly communication coming out from them to their list of prospective investors. It might be a electronic newsletter one week. It might be a blog post the next week. It might be a video log the next week. Short, sweet, little edutaining marketing. Always keeping in mind that these people are not real estate nerds like us. They don't want to see a ton of graphs and charts and data. They want to know that we know what the hell we're talking about, and they want to get the gist of it. At least that's been my experience.
Sure. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, man. So that's 3 out of these steps. The 4th step is being seen as a credible real estate authority in the eyes of our target group of prospective investors. So it's all about creating that credibility. We already they know us and they like us. Now we need to work on that trust factor. So there are all sorts of different ways to do that. You're familiar with a lot of these because of your business, but having a good website's a big part of that. The marketing's another part of that. The way you present yourself is another big part of that. Being interviewed on podcasts, interviewing people, all these kind of things are great ways to build up your credibility in the eyes of your prospective investors. Yeah. And then last but not least is all about once you've got an investor or two on board, it's so much easier to get more of them with really good testimonials and really good referrals, all those warm referrals. That's it in a nutshell, my friend.
That's good, man. And so you help me understand how you plug in. Do you help you people come to you and you help them create this and captivate an investor audience, and then
Correct.
they can go take down deals?
Yeah, I like to say we've got a boutique marketing agency, and our target clientele are mom and pop real estate entrepreneurs who are just getting started with raising capital and really don't know what to do and really don't want to figure all this stuff out. I mean, we plug in, we do all this stuff for them on their behalf, set everything up for them, websites, presentations, marketing, all the way to helping them create their contact list of people to market to, setting everything up in CRMs, all this kind of stuff. That's what we do. We do done for you marketing services.
Very cool. That's great, man.
Yeah,
Very much needed for a lot of investors. And I haven't heard many people that do it. So it seems like a good niche that you got.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because we can plug in with a lot of folks like you who are working with real estate entrepreneurs and helping them to grow their portfolio, but they get stuck, right? They run out of cash, they run out of credit. Where do they go? So this is one piece of the puzzle. And yeah, we're based in Canada, but we're international. We got clientele all over the States, even people as far away as Australia and the UK, following this process. It works. Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, I'm glad to hear a little bit of the background. And so right now, moving forward, it's working pretty well, and you're trying to grow it. What are ways that myself or the listeners can add some value for you? What are some maybe big challenges that you have that we can plug in and help with?
Big challenges that I have?
Yeah. Is it finding people to help you come join your team to grow this or anything like that?
We've got it pretty much dialed in, but if people are interested in finding out more about how we can help them, then they can, they can get a free copy of that book they see in the background there, which I've called the Money Partner Formula. And I've spared no expense in putting together the sign for you.
All right.
Investor Attraction
Book.com.
Yeah, investorattractionbook.com. I'll trade them a PDF copy of my book for their name and their email address. That'll get them into my world. You'll see the constant, consistent communication happening there, that's for sure. And if everybody's ever interested in the way we do it is I do a full day training program, virtual workshop, spend a full day teaching all of this stuff, and then offer the big red easy button for us to actually do it for them.
That's great, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Is there anything you can think of that you want to talk about before we get out of here? Anything valuable for you or the listeners?
Well, I just I think that what you and the gang are doing there, you and Alex are doing there with your company is amazing. I because you're kind of a full full service
Thank you.
outfit. So keep on doing what you're doing. I'm looking forward to coming down and visiting you guys. I mentioned I appreciate you being on my podcast a few weeks ago as well. So next time I'm in Austin, I'll let you guys show me around because I think you know the best places to go.
We got you covered, man. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. But again,
I know.
appreciate being here.
Yeah, man. And I think I told you, but I'm a big cannabis guy, and Canada. I look up to what Canada's doing, and they're leading the charge in a lot of ways. So I want to make it up there and see what that's all about.
We'd love to have you, man. Love to have you. Always would.
All right, Dave. Well, appreciate your time, man. What are ways that listeners? I know you showed the website, the link, but any other ways that they may be able to get a hold of you or contact you?
That's the best way. Just investorattractionbook.com, name and email address. You'll be in the system. You can reach out to me that way, but that's the best way to get started.
Cool. And you got a YouTube channel as well?
Yep, we got the podcast thing and the whole bit, and we had a great chat with you and Alex not that long ago, so they can check that out as well. propertyprofitspodcast.com.
All right, Dave. Well, signing out from Austin, Texas, the Real Estate Podcast. Appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Take care.